Tonight, the real intrigue surrounding the WNBA isn't unfolding on the hardwood. It's hidden in the details of ESPN's official statements. While headlines celebrate a so-called historic weekend, the numbers tell a different story. Viewership dropped by more than
This is historic. And they were like, scored historic viewership. How is it historic when it's like half of last year? Last year was nearly 4 million. How is it historic when it's like half of last year?
Last year, viewership was nearly 4 million. So how is this year being called historic when the audience has been slashed by half? I've got the raw Nielsen PDFs right here, with numbers ESPN conveniently chose not to mention. By the end of this video, you'll see how selective storytelling is distorting the narrative around women's basketball. But before we get into it, hit that subscribe button, because every week, we break down the sports numbers ESPN wishes we wouldn't. In the last video, you told me you were tired of headline math, those flashy percentages that gloss over the real baseline. The latest example, ESPN's coverage of All-Star Weekend in Indianapolis. A weekend headlined by Caitlin Clark, despite the fact she never even stepped onto the court. Let's break down exactly how the network framed the data, why that framing.
It's fine to just say, just post the ratings. But like, it is another situation than pretending like Caitlin Clark doesn't exist.
Caitlin Clark might as well not exist, at least if you go by how the numbers are being spun. Let's start with the official claim. The 2025 WNBA All-Star Game drew 2.2 million viewers, a 158% increase.
All-Star Game ratings from this past weekend was the second most watched WNBA All-Star Game ever behind 2024. No surprise there. The 2025 WNBA All-Star Game was the most watched program of the night across all of TV. The night, not the day. With 2.2 million average viewers, up 158% from the 2023 WNBA All-Star Game.
Notice anything missing? Yep, 2024. That's the year Caitlin Clark actually played, drawing a massive 3.4 million viewers. Compare that to this year's 2.2 million, and suddenly that historic headline starts.
Well, Uncle KC, ESPN was comparing this year's All-Star Game to 2023. Why? Why in the hell would they do that? I'll tell you why ESPN did this. This is another example of the mainstream media protecting the WNBA. This is another example of ESPN polishing the turd with this dump of a lead.
Why skip 2024? Simple. Because year-over-year comparisons are the gold standard in TV ratings. Just ask any network sales executive. You always benchmark against the previous year, not 2 years ago. ESPN knows this well, but they're betting most fans won't notice. And it's not an isolated case. In April, ESPN claimed the 2025 WNBA draft was up 119% compared to 2023, conveniently leaving out 2024. When Caitlin Clark's draft drew 2.45 million viewers, nearly double this year's 1.25 million. Same playbook. Skip the inconvenient truth. Highlight the flattering comparison. Take March Madness 2025. For the Women's Sweet 16 and Elite 8, ESPN used 2023 as the baseline, when Clark was still at Iowa. But when it came time to promote Final Four numbers, the comparison disappeared. Why? Because viewership dropped by 10 million after Clark's Hawkeyes were eliminated. That's the Strand effect. The more you try to bury the real baseline, the more obvious it becomes. And Clark's fanbase call them Clark Nation, or the Fever Faithful has developed a radar for these selective stats. Scroll through Reddit or X, and you'll find the same comeback everywhere. Cool story. Now, show 2024. Just rewind to the All-Star Game announcement, when the Fever ruled out Clark for muscle management. Ticket resale prices dropped 48% instantly. A $145 lower bowl seat became $75 overnight, cheaper than high school football in parts of Texas.
I can't imagine, folks, you know how many NBA players can get injured? And the prices would never drop to this low. LeBron James can be injured, Steph Curry could be injured, Kevin Durant could be in, and the prices still will not drop to be this low. $75? Folks, I'm sure there's some high school football teams down in Texas that charge you at least $75 to get to a home game.
To their credit, the players leaned into the moment. They took the court for warm-ups wearing bold shirts that read, "Pay us what you owe us." A striking visual statement, but with that message came a test. Could the league deliver record-breaking numbers without its transcendent star?
The WNBA players in their pregame warm-up came out in these t-shirts, "Pay us what you owe us." and then immediately pivoted to playing the worst All-Star game in the history of professional All-Star games. They took the court in t-shirts. Pay us what you owe us. We're underpaid. This league has lost millions of dollars, but we're underpaid. Pay us what you owe us. And then they served up a doo-doo sandwich to sports fans.
Friday's skills event offered a glimmer of hope. The three-point contest drew an average of 1.3 million viewers, up 89% from 2024, suggesting the league might just...
Three-point contest. ESPN, ABC, and Disney score the historic viewership for the 2025 WNBA All-Star events. Friday, July 18th, ESPN airs the most watched WNBA skills and three-point contest ever, averaging 1.3 million viewers, which is up 89% versus last year's WNBA skills and three-point contest, up 89%.
That momentum stalled on game night. The All-Star game drew 2.22 million viewers, historically solid, but a clear drop from last year's peak. Then came Kelsey Plum's post-game zinger. She joked that not a single member of Team Clark showed up to the t-shirt meeting. The comment went viral, just not the way the league had hoped.
The t-shirt, just united front was determined this morning that we had a meeting for, and not to tattletale, but 0 members of Team Clark were very present for that. But no, we were just we had a very that really needed to be mentioned.
Stacey King, former NBA champion turned broadcaster, put it bluntly, while players are pushing for better pay, they're still taking shots at Caitlin Clark, and that's a problem. The optics are tough to ignore, demanding bigger checks while sidelining the very player helping generate the revenue.
Quote, as you're fighting for better salaries, you're portraying a united front at your biggest event. You still find a way to throw shade at Caitlin Clark. Why? Stacey King posted. Quote, look at Sabrina's reaction to Plum's comment. It says a lot. Some of these girls are really petty, and someone needs to explain to them it's hurting their league, and it's sad to see. Now, he's not wrong.
Inside boardrooms, nobody's fooled. Franchise valuations have doubled since Clark entered the draft, and not because sneakerheads suddenly discovered the Connecticut Sun. Owners see that when Clark plays, ESPN gets NBA-level overnight shares. Fever versus Sky, 2.7 million. Fever versus Liberty, 2.2 million. Fever versus Sun, 1.7 million. When she doesn't, some million is still common. That delta, let's call it the Clark multiplier, is a negotiation sledgehammer. The players' collective bargaining dreams of charter flights and 8-figure media rights hinge on that multiplier holding. So when ESPN frames 2.2 million as unquote historic, owners nod politely, then flip to the second tab on their spreadsheet labeled, What if Clark played? A conservative projection says 4 million viewers may be higher given the stakes. That's a 50% gap between reality and potential. And potential is what media partners pay for.
Even without Caitlin Clark, it was the second highest rated WNBA All-Star game ever, and that is a huge point of distinction. Two things are clear. If Caitlin Clark plays in the All-Star game, it will set records. But now, because of her popularity, even if she doesn't,
Quick sidebar, could ESPN legally misreport ratings? Technically, no. Every number they've shared comes from real Nielsen data. The catch, it's not the full data set. That's the loophole. They're not fabricating numbers. They're curating them as the WNBA heads into CBA negotiations this winter. That distinction matters. Players are pushing for a bigger revenue share, charter flights, and a larger cut of the looming media rights windfall. Owners, meanwhile, want long-term viability, proof that the league can draw with multiple stars, not just one. That makes the next 6 months critical. Can a red-hot rookie, a healthy Angel Reese, or a surging Sabrina match Clark's impact? If so, the player's bargaining power multiplies. If not, the Clark multiplier becomes the entire bargaining chip. And ESPN, balancing its WNBA partnership with Disney's streaming ambitions, is right in the middle. Shaping the narrative, my guess, they eventually embrace the Clark effect fully, the way the NBA once leaned into Allen Iverson. Think feature games, mic'd up moments, even a docu-series. Why? Because once advertisers recognize the delta, The viewership jump Clark brings, they'll pay top dollar to be where the audience actually is. In other words, transparency sells. The faster the league owns that truth, the faster everyone profits. Remember, numbers can't lie, but people can absolutely rearrange them until the truth becomes unrecognizable. Your best defense, a 2-minute Google and a raised eyebrow. Celebrate the growth, acknowledge the engine behind it, and never let a polished headline bury the messy, important data. Until next week, keep the receipts.